Hey guys, this is Tashina from Logical Harmony. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited because today's video is not only highly requested, but it's also in partnership with CoverFX. They're one of my favorite cruelty-free and vegan makeup companies. I've been a huge fan of theirs for years. You guys have seen them so many times here on my channel, and so I'm really excited to be working with them on this video. Today's video is going to be all about how to make their new Power Play foundation work for you if you have skin that is dry or on the dry side. This is a great foundation. It does have a nice natural matte finish. It's medium, buildable to full coverage, but it is targeted towards combination and oily skin type. That said, you can definitely wear it if your skin is more on the dry side. Mine is, and I've been loving this foundation. I do have a first impressions video up where I share my initial use trying it and my initial thoughts. Now that I've been using it for quite a while, I have figured out a great way to work for it on my skin, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So if you're curious about this foundation, how I get it to work for my skin, and how it applies, just keep watching. So not only is this a mattifying foundation, but it's also a blurring foundation, and I find that very interesting, especially on camera. Both in person and on camera, it always looks really nice, and I think it's because of that blurring technology. It is also waterproof and sweat resistant, so this is one you can wear if you're working out, if you need to jump in the shower midway through the day. It is not going to budge on you. I do find that it is also transfer proof as well, which is super helpful. Like all the CoverFX foundations, this does come in 40 different shades. I love that from the beginning, CoverFX has always had 40 shades. Every foundation of theirs comes in 40 shades. It has since the company started, which is really cool. And they come from like one of the lightest shades out there to one of the darkest shades as well. It expands a whole variety of shades, but not only that, they have different skin tones covered too. So there's the golden tones, the neutral tones, and the pink tones. So that makes it so easy to find your exact perfect foundation, which I love. I think so many of us struggle in finding a foundation that is not just the right shade match, but the right tone match as well. I've definitely fallen into that where I buy a foundation, the shade matches, but the undertone is off. So throughout the day, my skin looks a little more pink. It's just off. And I think we all have fallen into that. And so I love that CoverFX addresses that with all of their products, not just their foundations, but also their concealers and their cream contour kits too. It's very cool. Applesauce, what are you doing up there? I think she's rolling around on a scratching post. Oh, is there catnip in it? There might be catnip in it. If you guys have used this foundation, comment, let me know what your thoughts on it are. You can get it on the CoverFX website. It's also available at Sephora, both online and in stores. I think that that's super helpful because if you have a Sephora near you, you can go there, you can try the shades, swatch them, take some samples home, and really figure out exactly which shade is going to work for you. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let's get right into it. So I'm going to start using the CoverFX Blurring Primer, and I used this in my first impressions video of this foundation. I applied it with my fingers, and what I found is that with my skin, it actually works a little better if I apply it with a damp beauty blender. I think it just helps it meld into the skin a little more, and it just sits a little bit better. So I'm going to apply this directly on my beauty blender. So I don't have a ton of primer, just a little bit. I'm gonna just dot that around and then blend it in with the beauty blender. Every time I start filming, Applesauce starts eating food, and it's really funny to me. And I have found that with this foundation, there are a couple of different moisturizers that I use before my primer, and they work really well with this foundation. So I'll just list those down below. They're from 100% Pure, and I have found that they just work so well with this foundation. The Kipper's Pot of Shade works really well too, so I'll link to that as well. Now that I've put primer on, I'm actually going to add a little bit of beauty oil, and I'm using the Pacifica Super Flower. This works really well with this foundation. I've tried a few other beauty oils, and this seems to work the best. I'm not exactly sure why, just the combination of the two seems to work really well. I've also used this with a few other foundations, and it has worked nicely too. If you don't have dry skin, you could definitely skip this step. If you have drier skin than I do, you might want to add in a couple of additional drops of beauty oil to your skin. I just find that this seems to help lock in the moisture into my skin and create a nice layer for the foundation to lay on. The primer still works the same and still has that blurring effect. Adding this just seems to make it last longer and just lock in the moisture, like I said. So I'm going to take 5 drops and add that to my beauty blender. Then I'm just going to dot that all around my face and really make sure to blend it into the primer. Applying it with the beauty blender just applies it very evenly, so it absorbs quickly, it absorbs easily, and it's a smooth, consistent layer, which is very important for this. And you can see that that leaves a really nice glow to the skin. If you have an inconsistent oil base on, it's going to get patchy with your foundation. It just doesn't doesn't work the same. Next, I'm going to take the Power Play foundation from CoverFX. I'm currently using the shade G30. I often use G40 or G50, just depending on how much self-tanner I've been using. I've been laying off of it, so this is what I am right now. One thing that I do really love about this foundation is that it is a medium to full buildable coverage. So you can have a nice, smooth, even medium finish, or you can just keep building it up and have that full finish look. It is a natural matte finish, and I think that's what's really great about it too. So if you are on the oily side, you can mattify it with powders. It is pretty matte. When I say natural matte, I want to emphasize it's like your skin being matte. It's not flat. You still have that little bit of glow, a little bit of skin-like look to it, but it's definitely mattified. If you have dry skin like I do, or skin that's on the drier side like mine, adding the beauty oil helps to just balance it out. It wears really, really nicely throughout the day. I've never had any issues with it getting cakey or creasing or anything like that. After my first impressions video, a lot of you guys were asking how it wears throughout the day, and honestly, it looks as good later on in the day as it does when it's first applied. It wears very, very nicely, especially if you take the time to prime your skin really well and if you have a nice setting powder. And I also really love this packaging because it makes it very, very easy to control how much product you're using. So it's not like a pump of foundation. Since it's a squeeze bottle, you get exactly how much you want. So if you want light coverage, you can do that. If you want very full coverage, you can do that as well. It's very, very easy to work with. I'm gonna go ahead and dot this all over my face, and then I'm going to blend. Now when I blend, what I'm going to do is blend until I basically can't blend anymore. Because this foundation is a natural matte finish, it does dry down. It doesn't stay sticky or tacky. So I'm going to blend until it dries. And I'm really gonna focus blending on the areas where I tend to have some patchiness on my skin or some different texture, or areas where it cakes up like around my nose. I really, really want to make sure that those areas stay super seamless, super smooth throughout the day. So I'm gonna focus some extra blending on those spots. Now that that first layer is completely blended in, I'm going to apply a little bit more product, and I'm going to focus that on the center of my face where I want a little more coverage. And again, just keep blending. When you feel like you may have blended enough, blend some more. I found that for my skin type, that is really, really the key with this foundation. Okay, it has pretty much dried down. Because I applied the beauty oil, it's not gonna get completely dry, but you can feel that the foundation itself has dried. I am done with blending. It blends out so, so well. And I've used this method with a brush and it works well, but I do prefer it with the beauty blender. If I'm not using the beauty oil, if I'm just doing the primer and the foundation like I did in my first impressions video, then I prefer a brush. But obviously find what works best for your skin. Everyone's a little bit different. Next, I'm going to use the CoverFX Cream Concealer in G Light and just apply a tiny bit underneath my eyes. This stuff is very, very pigmented, so the tiniest bit goes a very long way. I'm gonna put that on the back of my hand. Then I'm going to use my beauty blender to apply this and blend it out. This is such a nice concealer because of the cream formula. It's very thick, it's very pigmented. It blends out so nicely and it's such a creamy consistency. I really, really like it. It's also great for highlighting, and just like with the foundations, it does come in the different undertones as well, which is super helpful. I really like the golden undertone because it helps brighten. Next, I'm going to highlight and contour, and I'm going to be using the CoverFX Cream Contour Kit in G Light Medium. If you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you guys know how much I love this. I've been using this for years. It is such a good contour kit. It's probably my favorite one out there, cream or powder. It's just so nice. It's very blendable. It has 4 different shades, 1 shimmer highlight and then 1 matte, and then 2 different contours. I'm going to apply the matte highlight shade. And I'm going to use a concealer brush from Eco Tools to do that. Going to go ahead and blend that out. So this shade is G10, and now I'm going to use the shade G50 to contour. I'm actually going to mix in a little bit of the darker shade, which is G70. I'm also going to blend that out using that same beauty blender. Because of the beauty oil that's on the Beauty Blender, I find that I don't need to really dampen it often throughout this process. It stays really nicely moisturized, and the beauty oil on there seems to just help everything blend together a little bit more. If you feel like you need to get your Beauty Blender wet again, I found that what works best is to use a setting spray, not water. And CoverFX has their illuminating setting spray and their mattifying setting spray. I'm about to get into these. If you feel like you need moisture at any time on your Beauty Blender, just spritz one of these on and use that. Since I'm done with my cream products, I am going to set my face. I'm going to be using the CoverFX Perfect Setting Powder in Translucent Light. This stuff is so good. You guys have seen me use this so many times. Again, if you've been a fan of my channel for a long time, you know how much I love CoverFX, so none of this stuff, aside from the foundation, is going to be new to you. I do hope that this video helps you with some of the tips and tricks on application. So I'm going to shake a little bit out of the sifter, taking full advantage of this cover. I feel like I need to dampen my Beauty Blender just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit. So I'm going to spritz some of the mattifying setting spray directly onto it. Just give it a little more moisture to work with. This I'm going to dip directly into the powder. You don't need a lot. I would say about this much for half your face. I'm gonna go ahead and just blend this in all over my face. If you have skin that's on the oilier side, you might want to add a little bit more powder. If your skin is drier than mine, you might be able to skip it or just only dust it on the areas that you need to set, like under your eyes or your smile lines, anywhere like that. I'm gonna add a little bit more coverage to my nose. You can see that that really nicely mattified the skin. Because the beauty oil added a little bit of extra glow to the foundation, it had a little bit more dewiness in it, and now it's kind of taken it down. It still feels moisturizing. It doesn't feel like a matte foundation at all, and that's because of the beauty oil and the primer working together. You can see it's really smooth. The blurring primer is definitely still working. The foundation coverage is still there. It just feels so nice on the skin. And just like when I applied the foundation, I want to blend more on the spots where I tend to have some issues, either texture or with foundation settling. That's gonna help blend the product more and pull any excess off. I'm going to be using the Pacifica blush in Camellia with the Pro 5F brush from Furless. And for highlight, I'm going to be using the Gold Bar Highlighting Palette from CoverFX. I'm gonna be using these two different brushes from Furless. The small one is the Pro 2E, and then I will be using the Pro 5M fan brush. I'm gonna go in with the white gold shade. I love this highlight so much. If you want the highlight to pop a little bit more, spray some of the illuminating setting powder onto your brush before you dip it in, and it's just like a beaming, bold highlight. I'm gonna take a little bit more of the mattifying setting spray, and I'm gonna spray that onto my Beauty Blender and then just blend everything together on my face. Okay, I'm going to finish up the rest of my makeup off camera, and I will be right back. That's it for today's finished look. I hope you guys liked this video, and I'll see you next time.